Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
And welcome into the show. I'm your host, Jonathan Bam Rivers, and as always, it's a blessing to have you here with me today. Man, we've got wall-to-wall NFL action here on Move the Chains. The Dallas Cowboys, quote-unquote, America's team. Well, I'll tell you why I don't believe that moniker to be true, and I don't think the Cowboys are the stars that they think they are. Also, Facebook, Twitter, any type of social media, people love to give their opinions. Well, I'm going to let you give your opinion right here on Move the Chains today because I'm going to take straight to social media and answer questions that you as the fans have. And also, people think that you have to pay your quarterback based on the quarterback market, regardless of performance. And I'm going to tell you why that's a nonsense narrative like none other. And lastly, it's a player-driven league in the NFL, but coaching matters. All that and more right here on Move the Chains. But as always, let's kick it off. It's time for First Down. Take a look at this helmet. If you're a football fan, you know that this is the helmet of the Dallas Cowboys. And let me start by saying this. The NFL is about production. The NFL is about winning. And ultimately, it's about winning championships. That's how teams remain relevant. But when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, for some reason, the Dallas Cowboys can be one of the most relevant franchises, not just in the NFL, but in sports, while at the same time being irrelevant. So let's rewind to the 1990s. Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls in the 1990s in a short span. They won the Super Bowl in 92, 93, went back-to-back, beating the Bills both times, and then they won it again in 95 under 2 different head coaches, Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer. But Jerry Jones was the owner. And see, if you wanted to call the Cowboys America's team back in the 90s, I would have had no problem. They had stars like Michael Irvin. They had stars like Troy Aikman. They had stars like Emmitt Smith, Larry Anderson, Nate Newton, Leon Lett. They were fire across the board. Even had Deion Sanders for that 95 Super Bowl. So if you wanted to tell me, Jonathan, the Cowboys are America's team, I would have had no problem with it because not only do they have fans everywhere across America, the Dallas Cowboys can be a visitor and still have a large multitude or the majority of fans in that stadium because people follow the Cowboys. But now they're America's brand, not America's team. And why do I want to point out that they're America's brand? Because if you look at what Jerry Jones has done as a businessman, I want to point out the fact again that he's won 3 Super Bowls because, see, a lot of people get upset that the Dallas Cowboys aren't as good as what people expect them to be. And my question is, well, why do you expect anything different? Because since the year 2000, the Cowboys have 4 playoff wins. 4 playoff wins since 2000. So how are you going to be America's team if you've only accomplished 4 wins since that year? We're talking about a quarter of a century. And now the star power, pun intended, is still there with guys like Micah Parsons, who might be one of the best defensive players in football, and Dak Prescott, who for a lot of people has underachieved, but was one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in terms of MVP voting last year, had a phenomenal regular season. You've got guys like CeeDee Lamb, who's going to be paid like one of the top receivers in football this year. They've actually done a great job drafting and developing over the past 4 to 5 years under Jerry Jones as GM. They've won 12 games 3 straight seasons in the past 3 years. They've been there, but they haven't been able to get over the hump. So they're not America's team. They're America's brand. And I have a slide that I want to show you right here and telling you why they are America's brand. It's all about valuation. And if you look here at the Cowboys, $9.2 billion. Now, this isn't just the NFL. This is the entire litany and entire scope of professional sports. So even if I'm talking about the football teams, the Cowboys at first. You've got the New England Patriots tied for 3rd. You've got the Rams and the Giants and the Jets kind of in this list at $6.10 billion. But the Cowboys are worth $9.2 billion. And we're not even going to talk about how Jerry Jones has flipped this team to be a monstrosity when it comes to being a monopoly for pro teams. AT&T Stadium holds the Final Four. AT&T Stadium holds the college football playoff. When the Cowboys are practicing, Jerry Jones literally has people walking through the facility and giving them tours. That's how much of a businessman Jerry Jones is. So what I expect from the Cowboys is what other people don't expect for the Cowboys. I expect for them to be America's brand. I expect for Jerry Jones to continue to make money for this team. Because if you don't understand that he won 3 Super Bowls in the 90s, you may think that, hey, he should be trying to win a Super Bowl every year. I think Jerry Jones would welcome another Super Bowl. I think Jerry Jones loves the fact that he's putting a product on the field that people are watching. But what Jerry Jones loves even more is that he's putting a product on the field that people are watching even if they're not winning Super Bowls. And because of that, you have to consider them America's brand and not America's team. All right, coming up on Second Down, we'll take your questions on social media. More Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back into Move the Change. Now, social media is on fire when it comes to the NFL and when it comes to football in general. And you, the fans, always have comments and always have questions. Well, that's why I've got an opportunity for you to let your voice be heard and go back and forth with your boy. Let's run it. It's time for Second Down. So everybody's on social media and everybody wants to have their voice be heard and wants to make sure their opinion is known on their team or on the landscape of the NFL. So I wanted to give you the opportunity as a fan to talk to me, the subject matter expert when it comes to the NFL and college football. So let's tee up the first question here that we have on Move the Change today. This is from Trisha R. Is Raheem Morris the right hire as head coach for the Atlanta Falcons? Well, Trisha, I think that's a very, very interesting question. I think it's a great question. And the answer to that question is you don't know right now. I think they made a great opportunity in bringing him back because he was the interim coach of 2020. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's listen to what Raheem Morris has to say about his tenure as a new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Run it.
Let's talk about the plan. It's going to be a team and a family environment. A team and a family environment. Man, I want all of you guys to be able to talk to me, communicate at a high level. Man, it's already started. I've got communication from Kirk Cousins. I got communication with Jesse Bates and what he's doing, when he's doing it. Bijan Robinson, what's going on, what's happening in his life. All the people that we're talking about, everybody's important. Everybody's important. I don't care what you play, what you do for this organization. I want you to have that type of environment, that type of feeling with us.
The one word that sticks out to me is communication out of Raheem Morris's mouth. Raheem Morris has been a championship defense coordinator in this league. Like I stated earlier, he was the interim head coach for the Atlanta Falcons back in 2020 when they let go of Dan Quinn. He understands how to coach, but he also understands how to communicate with individuals. Now, it'll tell me a lot about Raheem Morris and this entire regime of the Falcons when the NFL draft comes, because as much as they have offensively, I definitely think as a defensive-minded head coach, he wants to address the defense immediately. So that'll go a long way in seeing how he is as a head coach. So, Tristan, to answer your question, you can't tell right now, but I definitely think it's a step in the right direction. What do we have next? This is from Marcus. Why are NFL running backs not valued the way they have been in the past? And Marcus, I appreciate the question. And the simple answer is because in people's minds, due to the NFL changing, becoming more of a passing league, they don't need running backs the same way they needed them in the past. And see, I disagree with this sentiment completely. You look at the first couple of clips here, you have Bijan Robinson and Christian McCaffrey. Now, Bijan Robinson was a first-round pick. Christian McCaffrey was as well. So, and if you look at Tyler Algier, he was a fifth-round pick. So I'm going to give you the delineation here. When you talk about a back like Bijan Robinson and Christian McCaffrey, they're more of not just a three-down back. They're an all-around type football player. Especially when it comes to Christian McCaffrey, you can line him up at wide receiver, and the 49ers use him in a litany of ways. Bijan Robinson is the same way. So while people think that you can get a running back in the fifth or sixth round like you did a Tyler Algier, that'll be sufficient enough to run your program. Well, it all depends on how you operate as an offense. I'm all in favor of taking a running back in the first round if he does a multitude of things. I look at Jahmyr Gibbs with the Detroit Lions, who helped lead them to an NFC Championship game berth this past season. They took him in the first round because he's not only dynamic out of the backfield, he's dynamic as a receiver, and he's dynamic in the return game when it comes to special teams. So the running back value has been depreciated in some people's minds, but if you have the running back of your choice, I'd like to make him as versatile as possible, which means you need to take him as soon as possible because he can do a lot for you on the field. All right, what do we have next? This is from Josiah. Love that name, Josiah. How important is the general manager of an NFL team? Josiah, I appreciate that you kind of went against the grain here. When it comes to general managers, They are ultra important. And the irony about this is a lot of people don't even know who the general manager of their favorite NFL team is. And I want to use a couple of examples. Les Snead, first of all, the general manager for the Los Angeles Rams. Do you remember when the Patriots beat the Rams in the Super Bowl when they had Jared Goff and they had a phenomenal defense with guys like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald? What did Les Snead, the GM, and Sean McVay, the head coach, decide to do? Let's move on from Jared Goff. We know he just led us to a Super Bowl, but we think we can make an upgrade at the position. They went and traded for Matthew Stafford. It was a player-for-player trade, as a matter of fact. Stafford from the Lions went to the Rams. Goff from the Rams went to the Lions. And the Rams were able to win the Super Bowl the very next season. And the Rams, even though they were void of first-round picks for a few years, still found themselves in the playoffs this past season. So it goes to show you that as a GM, you have to be willing to make the tough decisions. Now, in contrast, when you look at the New England Patriots, when Bill Belichick was there as the GM for the last 4, 5, or 6 seasons of his tenure as head coach, he drafted one Pro Bowl player as the GM of the Patriots. So while he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, head coaches in NFL history, as a general manager, he simply missed the mark. So not only is communication with the head coach important, but being able to develop and draft the right players for your system is imperative. So general managers are absolutely important to the progression and the success of an NFL team. All right, when we come back from break, you know what it is, my favorite segment, the nonsense narratives. Stay tuned because you don't want to miss it. We'll be back with more Move the Change right after this. And welcome back into the show. And it's time for my favorite segment of the show. A lot of you love it, but I know a lot of you hate it because it takes the opportunity for me to expose things that people say that are not true at all. That's right, it's time for the nonsense narratives. Let's run it. Now, I love talking about football. Love talking about the NFL. Love talking about the quarterback position. But a lot of people are getting on my nerves when they're talking about you have to pay your quarterback based on the market. That's the sentiment. It's not just the sentiment from fans. It's the sentiment from NFL teams. They've now been captured in the abyss of this mindset. It's groupthink of the worst kind. Earlier in the show, did I not call the Cowboys America's brand and not America's team? Why did I say that? Because what haven't they done in the past 25 years? They haven't produced. They haven't done anything on the field to warrant the moniker America's team. So you're telling me that at every other position, if you're a defensive end, you have to get paid, but after you prove it, which I agree with. At wide receiver, prove to me you're one of the best in the league, and I pay you like one of the best in the league. Offensive tackle, prove to me that you're one of the best left or right tackles in the league, and I'll pay you as such. I have no problem with that. I think that's what it should be. It's called proof of performance. But in the NFL, when it comes to quarterbacks now, there doesn't have to be a proof of performance. There has to be we have a franchise quarterback, so we're going to pay him franchise quarterback money. I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I think over 90% of teams are paying good quarterbacks elite quarterback money. Good quarterbacks are being paid elite quarterback money. And in my opinion, I would say there are 2 quarterbacks that are elite in the NFL right now. Patrick Mahomes, who is the best quarterback on the planet, one of the best ever, who's won 3 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and 2 regular season MVPs. And I put Lamar Jackson not on Mahomes' level, of course, but he is also elite because he's won 2 MVPs. Now, we'll get to what he's done in the playoffs, but those are your elite quarterbacks in my estimation. And I'm going to tell you something else. Just because you have the quarterback of your franchise does not mean you have a franchise quarterback. They're 2 different things. And how do you determine who's great? When a lot of people's minds, you say, well, if we have a quarterback that can win us games, we're going to pay him. I want to show you something. Throw up the graphic. So these are some current quarterback contracts, some of the richest quarterbacks in the NFL. And they're all household names, but I want to take the time to stay here for a minute. I look at Joe Burrow. His deal is for $275 million, $146 million guaranteed. Now, Joe Burrow is 5-2 in the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen, so he's going to be an exception to everybody on this list other than Patrick Mahomes. And I want you to look at some of the guaranteed money. Justin Herbert, $133 million guaranteed. He's never won in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson, he's been a 2-time MVP, and I just call him elite, but he's 2-4 in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts had a great season, got his money, and then Philadelphia kind of fell off a little bit. And I'm not going to put all that on Jalen Hurts. One, he's one of my favorite players in the NFL. He was a part of the problem, but it was not his fault that they fell apart. I think they have issues at the head coaching spot. I talked about Kirk Cousins a week ago, $180 million contract. It's actually $100 million guaranteed, but 90 of it is guaranteed as well, but it's $100 million guaranteed. I want you to think about Kirk Cousins having one win. So look at this list. Take all of the quarterbacks on this list and remove Patrick Mahomes. And their total win-loss record in the playoffs is 15-24. Every quarterback on this list combined, outside of Patrick Mahomes, has a win-loss record in the playoffs of 15-24. Patrick Mahomes is 15-3 with 3 Super Bowls. So if that doesn't give you the level and the depth of knowledge that I have on this subject, I don't know what will. I think you have to pay your quarterback, but you don't have to pay him an inordinate amount of money before he's proven anything to you. But teams continue to do it, and they wonder why they're not able to pay other people on their team. If you look at the San Francisco 49ers, everybody's getting paid on their team except the quarterback, Brock Purdy. But when Brock Purdy's eligible in the next 2 years to get a big payday, I think they should pay him, but I don't know if they should pay him $40 to $50 million a year because I don't know if he's that kind of quarterback. But I guarantee you they will because he's their franchise quarterback. All right, coming up after the break, it's the last segment of the day, which means it's time for the final drive. We'll be back with more Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back in to Move the Chains. So as we get to the end of the show, you know what time it is. It's time for the final drive. Look, like most professional teams, the NFL is a player-driven league. I'm not going to take anything away from players because it's hard to win when you don't have talent on the field. But, man, don't get it twisted. Coaching matters. Coaching absolutely matters. And I want to take Mike Tomlin, one of my favorite coaches in the NFL, because of what he's accomplished. Do you know that this man has been the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers since 2007? And do you know how many losing seasons he's had as a head coach? 0. Not only does he have no losing seasons, he's also won a Super Bowl. Now, I think Pittsburgh has underachieved over the past 4 to 5 seasons. They're always competitive, obviously, with having no losing seasons under Tomlin. They're in the playoffs, but they can't get over the hump and win a Super Bowl. But he's won so many games with being bereft of talent, especially at the quarterback spot. And if you're a team that has no quarterback, it's really hard for you to win in the NFL, and Mike Tomlin has been able to do it. So from a culture standpoint, from a schematic standpoint, and from a player accountability standpoint, he's one of the best to ever do it. So don't forget, players matter, but coaching matters as well. All right, we're about to wrap it up. This is your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. This has been another episode of Move the Chains. Can't wait to see you next time. God bless. Absolutely. Come on.